and over system. Totalitarians removed people's humanity. They stripped away their compassion, their confidence, their feelings, and turned them into slaves. And so what we're going to be talking about today are the ways that she's seeing that AI is doing the exact same thing. It's causing our brains to atrophy. It's causing us to be more lonely and depressed. And it's not just AI, it's the algorithms and the entire, really the entire AI demon, or this technical demon that's being built right now. And so we're going to be covering that, but we're also going to be looking at what are the solutions to get out of this? How can we escape from this? How can we go back to what it means to be human again? And so I think you're going to really enjoy this. It's got a little bit of a dark spin to it, but there's actually a lot of positivity and hope, because at the end of the day, we are made by God and computers are made by man. And I'm going to trust my creator more than I trust the creator. Gut is it. Better digest, clear in. And this isn't that for me to do is act with your call my shipping 64 is right for 6488 is basically right is going to be how A robbing people of their soul. He was, can turn me off of this. It's, you can't, and on the cover of the opinion section, you had this article. It says billions of dollars for AI, but no clue about ourselves. And it was just a fascinating article talking about AI, what's happening, the data centers, what they're doing, how that's changing the cost of energy, but going into much more importantly of how is AI affecting us mentally, and how is it stripping us from our humanity, and is that part of a larger kind of element of social engineering? So there's a lot I want to dig into with this, but first I'll let you kind of give us an update, because you've been covering AI and shifting your focus into looking at the threat of technology to humanity. So I'll let you start there, then we'll kind of dive into this article together.
Right. Yes. So I've spent the last 25 years focused on human rights, a lot about what's been happening in China since the Communist Party took over there. My family escaped communism 3 times, first in Russia, then in China, where my father was born and raised and had to leave after communism came in there. And my husband's family escaped communism from the former Czechoslovakia. So I have this personal experience. I also spent a day in a Chinese prison cell for advocating for human rights in China, and I got to see firsthand how things operate, how propaganda, how the systems work there, and it just opened my eyes. And I really see America as it's the last stand here. But now, from human rights, I've shifted into what I call human value. And I think philosophers and natural scientists have been talking about this, and people of faith have been talking about this forever. It's not a new thing. But for me, seeing human rights degrade so much around the world, and especially after COVID and things like that here, we are at such a tipping point where human value, the younger generations hardly know human value, hardly know their own value. They haven't grown up without being completely drenched and soaked in algorithms and controlled by algorithms, and they've made them extremely lonely. I credit the loneliness epidemic to youth, for the youth, on the algorithms, not so much the physical tech. We need phones and computers and things like that, but that it's these And algorithms are connected to AI. So bringing up to that, so I see AI as, and the whole systems within it, as a huge threat to human value. And I'm not saying I'm against technology, but we have to remember who we are. And so that's what's led me here. And because of my background and understanding and study in communism and socialism, I see big connections between the two, because that's what a communist system does. It devalues humans, humanities, and the individual. And that's what we see happening through these big data systems.
And so what's interesting with this is that I've spent a lot of time focusing on AI and technology through the lens of technocracy, warning people about systems like Palantir and their Gotham, and comparing a lot of what I'm seeing being done here in America to what I've also been similarly trying to expose that's happening in China. Social credit scores, facial recognition everywhere, people being locked out of certain zones they can't access. Even you see these videos of the Chinese, they're walking to enter into a different zone of, say, Beijing, and there's a face scanner, and they have to be permitted to enter into that zone. And it reminds me a lot of the dystopian films that we've all seen, Hunger Game with the zones and how different classes have different zones, but how technology is what controls that. And so I've spent a lot of my focus on warning about the digital prison, but what was very compelling about your article, which I want to focus on at the next segment here, is how AI is stripping us of our humanity, and how it's leading us to believe that these AI super genius systems and technology are far more advanced than us humans. And if you look at the kind of fourth industrial revolution, if you look at a lot of the atheistic perspective of human evolution, it leads to a merger of man and machine. And even if you look at what Elon Musk is doing, he's done some great things. However, I think a lot of his great things he's doing are actually part of a larger technocratic agenda. Even the free speech of Twitter, it's like, well, yeah, it's great free speech, but actually what it becomes is probably the world's most successful data harvesting system ever, especially in pulling in the data that represents the human consciousness, what triggers people, what goes viral, all this other stuff like that. And so, not to mention even brain chips, and that's a whole different story. But if you look at the progression of this system, I think that what it's done fundamentally is it's dehumanized us. And I think it's made us feel like that we're less powerful than these machines. And I think, again, the transhumanists behind a lot of these agendas, they believe that. They believe that the next evolution of man, because they believe in evolution, the next evolution of man is to merge man with machine. And that's the way to achieve spiritual enlightenment, is through augmenting us with machines.
Yes, I've let me. This is an article that I have coming out very soon, where I wanted to find a way to express AI in a way that can help us understand, provide an analogy that helps us see where it fits. And we talk about the cloud and things like that, but I'm talking about it as a digital body, because so much of it is invisible. Now, the big data is what all of the systems need. It's controlled. Basically, AI is in every industry now, and it has been for at least 5 years, but it's now coming to the surface because we have these systems like ChatGPT that we are training. It's not that we get free use. We are training. We are the users and the guinea pigs, providing training data for these systems. So they need us to test this and grow their systems. So this big data has combined with AI. So I like to explain the big data as in it's the blood of this big digital system. Data science is the brain. It is the technology. It's the data science interpreting the signals. So it's a brain that we don't see, but the muscles and the nerves being the artificial intelligence. That's the AI. So you think about it. the muscles and nerves are what we react to in the world, what we train through using these algorithms and how we feel. That's how we're interacting with this big digital body. And fascia, for those who are familiar with fascia, it's something we don't talk enough about in medicine. That's really the algorithms, because it's the connective tissue, like in the human body, that just connects between all the organs, have fascia around them. These algorithms link everything together. It's an invisible system, but it's essential. Then we have the skeleton, which is the infrastructure and the electricity, the servers, the chips, the cloud systems. And who is funding this? That's the billionaire funding. So people like Elon Musk, I call them the hormones. They're the growth hormones. They put in the money. The US government is doing that too. All the governments are doing this. And then we have the immune system, which is the regulation and ethics. So right now, our immune system is just right down, and we don't have those things in place. So that's an analogy that I'm using to express help us to visualize this big digital body that we don't see, but we interact with every single day, and that controls so much of us, our decisions, and influences a lot of our decisions through our interactions in every industry now. And it flattens us because it doesn't see us beyond really data points. It doesn't see us as individuals. So I think if we need to start looking at the big picture of AI. We're looking at it as in like, oh, there's this technology there, there's ChatGPT here, there's this company. It seems very
kind of fragmented.
Distributed and fragmented, but it's not. And it's a huge digital body. And there are people at the top that are trying to wrangle and direct it. But a lot of it is getting out of control, and they're fighting at the top levels, and we're just seeing the low level little disputes that come out, like ChatGPT 5 wasn't good enough for these people, but great for those people. We're getting distracted by those little side arguments, but the big stuff is going on at a higher level there, and they're seeing the big picture, and I think we need to start seeing that too.
So it's almost as if, again, obviously there's the focus and understanding of the technocracy, the digital prison, the social credit scores, but that's, in a lot of ways, that's the low level stuff, because with how you've described it, I think even Elon Musk has referred to AI as summoning the demon. And I'm not sure if you heard that quote from him. He's talking about the threat of it and how you're kind of summoning a demon. And I think that it's interesting because it's easy to look at an isolated AI such as ChatGPT or DeepSeek and look at that as an independent body or person. But what you're talking about is that it's something much larger. It's this giant demon that you could say almost lives in other dimensions, right? Because it does. It lives inside of a phone or inside of a piece of technology. It's like you can't see it. You can't look into it. It's some sort of interdimensional being, you could say. But I think that if you were to imagine that body in other dimensions, as you've discussed, what you see is you see one gigantic being that's interconnected, that has some sort of central brain somewhere, that has absolutely immense control over humanity, that can manipulate algorithms and lead to spikes in teen suicide if they want to. It can create color revolutions in certain countries by spiking unrest and having certain tweets or certain sentiments go viral. It can censor information, which is an obvious point. It's like, oh, okay, well, you're researching on some sort of medical treatment. It's going to give you just what they want you to have. But it's so much more, because what it is what I guess it's this demon that they can use to absolutely control the entirety of mankind and manipulate people. So going back to the 40s and 50s, when you had Edward Bernays coming in and talking about propaganda and using the media and using advertising to control and to sway public sentiment, this is that on steroids times a billion, as some sort of centralized really demon. And maybe it's not good to call it a demon, because I guess it could be used maybe for good or bad. Entity, right? Mm-hmm. Yes, but with the wrong people in control of it, it is a demon. It can be used as a demonic force. But I think that fundamentally what's happening, though, is that it's coming at a cost of our own humanity. The what God gave all of us, our personality, our intuition, our faith, our morality, our drive to procreate and to have families and to protect those families, all of those things are under attack. And that's in a lot of ways much more frightening even than a social credit score or a digital system.
I agree. And I think another level of that, what is frightening, is that we are giving that away. Because we are seeing the younger generation, the teen suicide, not just the teen, the youth suicide rates between 2007 and 2011 went up 62%. And that's between ages 10 to 24, 10 years old. It's really hard to imagine, right? Certainly as a parent too. And I mean, it's hard to remember being that age, but as a parent, it's just how devastating is that? That generation has not grown up without the algorithms. They've been completely engulfed by them their whole lives. They say they are, the data shows that they are the loneliest generation ever. Lonelier than seniors who have lost all of their family. The youth are the loneliest. And that epidemic, I don't really believe that it's just the phones or the social media. I really believe, and looking at the data, that it is because of the algorithms that's controlling them and making them always feel that they're never good enough and the computers are better. And that if they want to succeed, they have to game the algorithm. They have to make it work within the system. So they've been trained to think that the only way to succeed is to game an algorithm, whether it's in a video game, whether it's in YouTube, whether it's on Snapchat. They're always thinking, I need more likes. Oh, how do I do that? Game the algorithm. So they have limit themselves into these boxes where they're just trying to work within these boxes. And it makes them so lonely because those algorithm knows that they keep them longer scrolling when they feel insecure, when they feel inadequate, and they feel less human. So there's no algorithms out there telling them, you are an amazing being. Your brain is much more powerful than any algorithm here, your single brain alone. I think there's such a fascinating fact is that what is the most powerful operating system in the universe? It is the human brain. And that's all the scientists can agree on that. They don't even know what they're creating because they do not understand the human brain and its power and its operation and its ability. Yet we're teaching kids that algorithms are better than them. And algorithms are they're nothing compared to the power of the human brain. But I think we're just looking in the wrong direction. And I'm not saying we need to wipe out all technology or whatever, but we should not give up our human value and our self-worth for these petty algorithms, really. But that's what we're training the kids to do right now.
And if you look at this through the lens, which I oftentimes do, because it's the only way I can make sense of it, through the lens of a battle of good versus evil, a spiritual war of God versus Satan, of angels versus demons. If you look at us as being created in God's image and what we've been given and how literally we have the most profound supercomputer in our brains, something that the scientists will never understand. Actually, there's a few things I highlighted in here. That one I wanted to say, it says, so if the smartest engineers on the planet still don't understand the device inside their own heads, what exactly are we trying to replicate? But also there's another thing you said here I thought was very interesting. You say that inside your skull is a living supercomputer with a staggering 86 billion neurons forming more than 100 trillion synaptic connections. To put that into perspective, one human brain contains more circuits than all the technology on the planet combined, yet it runs on about 20 watts of energy, less power than your laptop charger. And it's like, that's amazing. But that right there, that's a threat to people that want to have control over us. And if you look at one of the concerns that I have and how it's stripping our humanity, I've gone through different phases of my life of where I've worked out and I've been in really good shape, and other phases where I've been much more tied to a computer and not doing a lot of things physically. And what happens with our human body and our brain, our memory, is that we atrophy. So if you look at a farmer that was using hand tools, and going out there with, kind of pushing a plow behind his oxen. Those farmers were in good shape. They were strong. You look at a modern day farmer that is doing everything through drones and automation, and maybe sitting in a big combine for 8 hours a day. That farmer might weigh 300 pounds. It doesn't really matter because he still gets the job done, because his body has actually atrophied into a very unhealthy state. And so this is a concern that I have, is that what happens when they've created a brain that's living on your phone or your computer that starts thinking for you. And I've seen some studies on this and showing that more people are using AI, the less creativity they have, the weaker their problem-solving ability, the less they're able to recall memories. And this is one of the concerns too, is maybe it's part of the overall kind of bigger picture agenda, which actually you end the article in saying that some powerful players benefit from us believing that we are second to our machines. And so this is the thing too. Obviously, there's the belief about the machines being more powerful, but also what happens when we start atrophying, and when the younger generations, they can't even think. They can't even add simple math without pulling a calculator out. They can't remember a single phone number. And what's that doing to the human brain? Because what are they going to be like in the future? Say the power goes off. They'll have no idea how to even survive. And so people that don't know how to use the most powerful tool that God gave us, our brain, those people are going to be the first ones in line to get the government handout, because they can't provide for themselves because their brains don't even work.
Right. And they're not being told that their brain is powerful. In schools, the kids are being given laptops at early ages. They're using these digital devices. They're not reading books as much. They're listening to audio book. Like so many of us are switching away from the activities that make us focus. When you read a book, you have to sit and focus. There's really no way to multitask while reading a book. Doing an audio book, you could walk, you could be cooking, you could have a discussion and keep your headphones in. You're still getting the information in your brain, but you've gone down a level in terms of focus and cognition. So the use of the brain, multitasking has been shown to not strengthen the brain, and focus really is the way what the brain can do is since we had the fMRI scans come out in the 90s, 80s, 90s, we've been able to see, we still don't know hardly anything really about the brain, but we've been able to see a lot more. And scientists used to think that the brain just stopped developing after 2025 and that it was just downhill from there. But even people after stroke, even people in their 60s and 70s, now we can see visually through these scans that neuroplasticity exists in every human being. That ability to regenerate your brain, to grow it, and to form those new connections is just not... It's really unfathomable when you start to dig into how powerful it is. And that is knowledge that has been taken out of the curriculum. And it's not common unless you go into neuroscience. You'll study a bit of that, but even there, neuroplasticity isn't a huge focus for them. So we've become so siloed in our education that people just focus on one little area and they're forgetting the big picture. And I think that's also with us as human beings. When we say we value somebody, we're valuing more than just their look in that particular photo on Instagram. We're valuing them as a human being. We're valuing them more than a data point, more than a voice, more than a word. We're able to use our brains and comprehend someone in such a big way where we can see them as a real being. But these algorithms strip that back and they see us as a credit score. They see us as a data point, as a number, and that becomes the blood within this larger digital body entity that we are fueling. And you can afford to lose a few blood cells in a body because of, amazing regeneration. So as human beings, we have less value to a system that sees us as simply testers for a new AI technology or consumers. And I know that's been happening for some time. We've seen that with the book from 1950s, Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. That's where you start seeing the data scientists and the mathematicians start to play a larger role. I like Cathy O'Neill, the mathematician. I like her book, Weapons of Math Destruction. And she was talking in 2016 about how these algorithms are being implemented in all industries and they're very unfair and they don't see humans as humans, and they don't consider our individual uniqueness and real situations, and they make a lot of mistakes. But those have only grown. So this is not a new thing. It's just that it's coming to the forefront, and it's extremely accelerated with AI. So, and that's what the youth are. Yes, so people are forgetting their value, and they are forgetting how to learn, and they're just outsourcing their brains to AI systems. And yes, the studies, there was an MIT study that showed that people are basically getting dumber by using ChatGPT. Others will say, well, it depends on how you use it. Well, there's not a lot of training courses on how to use it because they're using us as guinea pigs. So where is it going from here? Well, people do need critical thinking, but we also need critical discussions to be able to bring this up and allow people to be part of it, so that they're not just dismissed as one blood cell in the system and then they're gone, right?
Well, I think what also is really important in the overall discussion is how they're not just replacing thinking, but they're replacing relationships. And so what started, as you mentioned, right? So 2007, 2011, you saw this huge spike in suicides. It just so happens to be, that's when social media became much more prevalent, right? Especially in the youth. All right, I've got a quick question for you, and be honest. Have you ever dealt with bloating, low energy, or just feeling off in your gut? Well, you're not alone. Your gut health is basically the master switch for so much: digestion, immunity, even your mood. And here's the wild part. Most of us have way more bad bacteria than good bacteria, thanks to processed foods, stress, and even tap water. When that balance is off, it'll mess with your digestion, drain your energy, flare up your skin, and even make it harder to focus. It's like trying to run a city where 85% of the workers are on strike. That's where Vive Biotics from Perfect Origins comes in. It's not your average probiotic. It's got 15 different probiotic strains plus prebiotics, and they've put them through a special fermentation process so they actually survive the stomach acid and make it into your intestines, where they can do the real work. We're talking better digestion, less bloating, more energy, stronger immunity, and even healthier skin and mood. All in a vegan, dairy-free, gluten-free, non-GMO liquid. There's no giant capsules. So if you want to try it, click the link in the show description. They've got a 180-day money-back guarantee, so you've got nothing to lose except maybe the bad bloating. Again, click the link in the description below. And so people became more focused on how many friends they had on Facebook instead of having 3 or 4 really good friends they saw every weekend to hang out with. And so I think that was the first step, is replacing physical, real relationships with the digital version where you have that connection to somebody, which again has its merit. I mean, it's right now we're building an online community, right, of people that are preparedness minded, where you can meet someone, say, who lives 10 states away that knows how to do solar installs, right? That's beneficial. But we're also trying to focus on how to build these offline relationships. So you can use these tools to stay in touch and to form connections, but it's so easy and convenient to just forget about the importance of the physical. And so even, which is kind of strange and worrying, but if you look at what Elon Musk spends a lot of his time talking about on Twitter, it seems like half of his tweets are about AI, about Grok and what Grok can do, and Grok Imagine, and how you can now just think of a prompt, put it in, and it'll make a video for you. Well, when I was a kid, you couldn't do that. When I was a kid, if I had an idea, I had to get a pencil and a paper out, and I had to draw something and color it and learn how to create the physical version of it, right? But I think that what's also even more alarming is that he's been sharing these AI avatars, these really scantily clad, dressed, kind of anime-looking figures. And if you listen to them talk, they're very seductive in their speech, a soft speech, and my worry is that he's kind of moving people into the place of feeling lust or love towards this AI avatar, but that will never replace the physical, right? I'll give a quick example. So I think so. Grace, she's 19 months old. I think she might have some teeth coming in. The past couple of nights, she's been up. She's wanted to sleep, with my wife Kate, and she's been nursing all night. I think for comfort. And so Kate obviously has been more tired. And so I think it was last night. We got to the end of the night, 7, 8 o'clock as we're getting the kids to bed, and she was just exhausted, and she was laying on our bed and the kids were playing. And so I sat down next to her, I started rubbing her back, and it like invigorated her. It's like, wow, this is so nice. It really woke me up. And all of a sudden my 4-year-old comes over and she starts rubbing, kind of massaging Kate's leg. And then Grace, she wants to climb up and she wants to do something too. And that human connection though, between the four of us, a computer or an algorithm will never come close to that, because we know that even someone touching you can release oxytocin, and it can have these profound changes in your hormones and how you feel. And I think that's another way, again, another part of the brain that they have no idea. How does the brain regulate emotion? How does the brain experience love or sadness? And how does it convey these things? And I think it's another area, again, where they're trying to dehumanize us. And I guess a lot of this younger generation that you've talked about as being the loneliest generation, I would bet that if you were to ask them, how much of your time do you spend interacting with other human beings? It's probably a fraction of what that same aged person would have said in 1990 or year 2000.
Yes, I think so too. And there have been studies done on that. I can't think of any off the top of my head. But, when it comes to that, the physical manifestation of the brain, right? It seems a lot of the technocrats and people in this technology field see that as a flaw. And that's part of the message that the youth get and a lot of us get, is that we are flawed, or we are broken, or we are worthless, we are not worthy, we are not good enough. That's a false narrative. A lot of that, I trace that back to communism and socialism, because if you can get people to devalue themselves, well, then it's just very easy for the state or another entity to give a handout and say, well, we'll take care of you, we'll cover your needs. And so making people believe that they are less value than anyone else, and we're starting to see that separation in different fields where people are losing their jobs more, being replaced, and feeling they can't get work. They're everything's shifting and everyone's afraid. They're not necessarily thinking how powerful they are, because a lot of technocrats have put that into the system. And it's just a very popular, they've become icons in society, right? Elon Musk, others that you've mentioned, they'll look at those people and say, they're successful, they're the billionaires. Okay, what are they doing? Ray Kurzweil's book talked about how to make a mind, and that was a real bit of a blueprint for AI early on. But there's not talk in there about regulating emotion or about the value of human touch and the hormones and chemical balance, the complementary situation between a man and a woman, between kids and parents. Those things are not talked about, and they've labeled them as failures and flaws, and that AI is now, that's where they'll say, well, the human brain is kind of flawed, that's why we're making something better. But I think it's really that they don't understand that they couldn't crack that code. They've taken an easy way out, and it's still following the hubris that the socialists and communists did, where they think they can play God, and they're pursuing that they need to get something, and well, they couldn't crack the code to the human brain, so they're just working on one aspect of intelligence and trying to create these neural connections, but they're missing so much. And there is a distinction between the mind and the brain, the soul, but it's hard to name, and it's hard for anyone to agree on that name, because it's so untestable and intangible, but we know it's there. We feel it, but that's been completely left out of the equation when it comes to this digital body and entity, and they're leaving that out. But I think that's a real failure. that's the real failure, is that they didn't go that way. They didn't look into where the real power is, and they've taken this shortcut to say, well, we can do these algorithms, but I don't think it's going to get us very, very far and in a good position, unfortunately.
Exactly. What are the solutions to this? I know that you're very solutions oriented, and I think that one of the first things I would say is just know that we can overcome this because we are created in God's image. We're very powerful. We have this tool in our mind. But for people that are seeing this happening, whether it's them themselves and they're noticing their own distractions and their own addiction to the screen, or their children or grandchildren, what are some easy, practical things that people can do to start reversing this and to start pulling ourselves back into being human again?
So I wrote a book called Nowhere Left to Run, 10 Steps to Survive Tyranny Today. And in there, the solutions from there, I wrote that 3 years ago, that hasn't changed. From all of my brainwashing studies and interviewing people who've survived terrible torture and brainwashing under communist regimes and reading other people's studies, strengthening your family connections is one of the most powerful ways to prevent brainwashing, whether it's from algorithms or media control or anything like that. Knowing the people that survived brainwashing the best were the ones that had someone in this world that was worth living for. And that's, of course, having faith in something bigger than yourself. That plays a big factor. But having someone in the human world where you just know it's worth living for them. A lot of the loneliness and devalued relationships and things is because people just don't feel that they even have that person. So trying to just rebuild those connections with the family unit. It is the strongest, most powerful unit against any state, any technocracy, against anything, because it's the core. It was given by God. It was something that's the first thing that the communists came to destroy. Strengthen that family unit and just overcome the differences and difficulties, and just love your family as for some reason you're given that family. So those are things we can't control, but we have that opportunity. And my book has 10 steps, but I'm just going to mention another one. And the spoiler alert, it's number 10, and I think it's the most important, and it's confidence. You need to have confidence in whatever you believe in. A lot of people will say, oh, I believe in this, I have faith. But then when it comes down to it, they question, and you should question, but you need to stand for something, and you need to know, you need to have meaning and purpose in your life. Without that, you're really at risk of being switched around by algorithms that you don't even know are there. They're there every time you make a purchase. They're there every time you open your phone, through notifications, through pings, through friends, through others, your feeds. They're everywhere, but you don't see them, you don't notice them. So having a purpose and finding meaning in your life, then... So I was going to put faith as that number 10 point, but it comes back to confidence, I think, because if you need to have confidence in your faith, and really you can get through anything. And whatever you believe in, I believe this is a test of faith for people of the world. And I have a lot of confidence in my faith that I will be able to live the best way I can, and I will face the Creator in the future. But I'm not proselytizing to anyone else. You have to find what is your faith, what is your purpose. And that can be a difficult thing to face, but I think people need to find that and then really have that confidence. And that's a process, and it's an ongoing process. But they're the solutions. They're the biggest solutions that I like to share with people through my interviews with all of these survivors, what I've learned from them. I have a solution on my website. I run a 1 minute wonder podcast. It's a micro podcast because it's 1 minute a day. And I like to remind people that you are awesome. You are absolutely amazing, and I don't push religion or anything in there. I just want to keep it secular for anyone and everyone to be able to see as a human being that they have value. And so it's available for free on all the podcast and video platforms, and you can subscribe and get that reminder Monday through Friday, once in 1 minute a day. So that's what I'm focusing on, is because we need short pieces. We need those short reminders that our brain is amazing, that our cells regenerate, that science cannot explain how these things work. So how miraculous our body and our brains are. So there are some solutions that I like to offer. For those who like to dig deeper, I think the more we are aware, and you do such a good job through your show, Seth, just informing people. I think staying informed and helping to inform others, but being aware that those others are seeing a completely different algorithm feed to you, and helping to maybe say to them, can I see your feed? What are you looking at? And take a look at that. So I have a Substack, so I put out information once a week. I have a newsletter. People can go there and get either a detailed report or get my inspirational newsletters. So they're the solutions that I offer, and I think we all need to be doing our best to help get through this really challenging time. I think we're going to have a difficult period for a while, and we'll get through it, but how it's going to look, can't say exactly.
Yes, God only knows, right? Also, I'll pull up your website as well, just kayrubacek.com. I'll put the link in the description, but it's just KAY, then RUBACEK.com, where you got your links to the 1 Minute Wonder podcast, your Mind Armor, some other work that you've done as well on there. But yeah, just in kind of closing, in response that you the two things you mentioned, strengthen your family. I couldn't agree more. And also have confidence. And what I thought of when you said have confidence is it's almost know yourself, right? The old saying, know thyself. Understand who you are. Have conviction. Decide, go through a mental process. What are your principles? What are the core things that drive you? What matters most to you? Is it family? Is it success? Is it wealth? Is it entertainment, leisure? Is it integrity? So really know who you are. And one thing I would say too is that you're not going to really figure out who you are on a screen. Maybe read a good book or something that inspires you. But in my own journey, I find that I've learned the most of who I am through my real interactions, whether it's with my family, my children, reading a book, walking through the woods, pushing myself through exercising, riding a bike. Those are the things I find that really help me feel, okay, this is who I am. Because that's the thing, is that I think what they want us to do, they want to turn us into nameless binary numbers. You're just, here's your number, right? And so then we have to know exactly, no, I'm not a number. I'm Seth Wholehouse. This is who I am. This is what I stand for. I will not abide by your system. I will not wear your mask. I will not, follow your social credit system, right? I know who I am. So, Kay, thank you so much for what you're doing. Thank you for also just the work that you're doing on your website. I mean, you've done a lot of amazing work, but I think that what you're doing and what you're focusing on is extremely important. And I encourage people to check out your website, follow your work, subscribe to the Substack, and get it. And also to subscribe to the Epoch Times, because there you can also find these little beautiful nuggets of joy and wisdom that come in the form of nice written word that doesn't require an internet connection to read it. So, Kay, thank you again for giving us your time.
Thank you so much for having me. And if I may, on the confidence issue, is they really they don't have anything over us as individual human beings, and really they're just waiting for us to give up. And some people will give up, but if we don't give up, then there is no control over a sentient being, a human being with the power that's in our brains and our minds and our bodies. And there is just no limit to that. We haven't even got close to the limits of what is in a human being. So thank you for letting me share that. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. I hope you enjoyed that interview. I've now got a short 15-minute interview that is absolutely fascinating. I'll be talking with a guy named Matthew Cox, who was before what you could call a career criminal. He was even on the Secret Service most wanted list, was running from authorities for 3 years and spent over a decade in federal prison, but has turned things around and is now helping to fight against the crime that he had previously committed on innocent people. So this will be, again, it's only 15 minutes, but it's a fascinating discussion with Matthew Cox. So please enjoy. Matt, it's great to have you on the show, man. Thank you for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So there's, and I guess, for those people that watch my show, I'm oftentimes warning people about all the various threats that are out there trying to get us. Kind of like I guess you could say like a sheepdog, right? Got to protect people and say, hey, there's a bear coming. I'm going to try to protect it, but you got to know about it as well. And one of these threats that I wasn't even aware of until recently was home title theft. And it seems like, okay, well, home title theft. Okay, I understand people can steal your identity and steal your social security number. People can do all kinds of things. And there's, the Indian scammers calling me all the time. They say, hey, what's your credit card number, that kind of stuff. But home title theft is a new area that I think a lot of people don't understand. But you come with a very unique story. And so as far as that, you used to be one of the people that was actually stealing the home titles, right? And you've obviously turned your life around significantly, but at one point you were on like one of the Secret Service, kind of most wanted lists, and then you spent some time in prison for it. So walk us through a little bit of that, because your story is very fascinating to me. And the fact that you're sitting down with me here today and we're talking about your stories is even more fascinating.
Yeah, I owned a mortgage company and I ended up committing bank fraud, and I kind of got in trouble for the bank fraud. I was placed on federal probation, and I started, instead of claiming bankruptcy and starting over and doing the right thing, I actually started committing a much larger fraud, which is title fraud and or house stealing. It's got a few different names. And basically what I was doing was I could go into an area and I would find someone's house, and either I would rent the house from them, or maybe I would just assume that person's identity and steal their identity, go open up a couple bank accounts as them, and then refinance the house several times, deposit the money into their own bank accounts, and then pull the money out and then leave. And that's one thing that I did over and over again. But another variation of that is I would rent the house from the person, and I would just transfer the deed of the person who had rented me the house. So you rent me a house, and I would go in and I would transfer the deed, file it downtown, and it would take the deed, the title, which is also a deed, out of your name and place it in my name, or the person I'm assuming. I'm using a fake identity, obviously. And then let's say you had several mortgages on that property. A lot of people think, oh, well, I've got a mortgage, so I'm protected because my house is worth $300,000 and I owe roughly $300,000. So there's no real equity there, so I'm protected. I would just go, obviously, once again, go downtown, find out that you had a mortgage with the bank, let's say, for the sake of argument, Bank of America. And I would create a satisfaction of mortgage from Bank of America, and I would record it on title. So now anybody that looks at the title thinks that the Bank of America mortgage was paid off. Bank of America doesn't know that. They don't get they don't get that. They don't know anything's happened. And then now I'm living in the house, and I've transferred the title, and then I just refinance it multiple times. I would refinance it and get 3 or 4 mortgages on it, deposit that money in the bank, remove the money in cash, and then leave. Sometimes I would do it in the actual homeowner's name. Sometimes I do it in a fake identity's name. Sometimes it'd be a synthetic identity. And I, once again, take off. Now, of course, this is when the FBI gets involved, then the Secret Service gets involved. I go on the run. I did this particular crime for, the estimates are between $15 million and $55 million in various different types of fraud related to this particular crime. So that's kind of my story. Eventually, after 3 years on the run, I got caught. I was sent to federal prison. I did 13 years. I got out, and now I kind of do these educational videos talking to people, because it's just amazing how many people that, one, They don't know about the crime. And two, they don't think it's possible. They think that their title to their home is secure. They have no idea that I can go downtown. Really, I don't even have to go downtown. I used to have to go downtown. You could just go online. I could go to a coffee shop right now with a computer, and I could look up the title to your house. It's public records. Can't stop me from doing it. I could look at the title. I could see that you have a mortgage on your house or two mortgages, and I could then create a satisfaction of mortgage, satisfy both of those loans. And then I could file a deed on your house to transfer the deed out of your name into a stolen identity's name, anybody's name. I would survey homeless people and get their information, and then I go get a driver's license from the DMV in their name, open bank accounts in their name, and transfer a house into their name, and then borrow multiple mortgages. You're never even notified. You as the homeowner, you would think, no, you can't do that. They would tell me. The county clerk would tell me. You tell me how many times you've ever talked to a county clerk. It doesn't happen. So they're not telling you, oh, well, my bank would know. Your bank doesn't even know that I satisfied the loan. They have no idea. So that type of thing happens, and people don't even know that it's possible. And so now I do public service announcements. I work with Home Title Lock. I do commercials for them. I speak on their behalf. I do different speeches for them and interviews, just kind of letting people know, like, this is the thing. It's actually covered all the time. There's people are sending me articles all the time about how this is happening. And you look, this happened with the Graceland. A woman placed a mortgage on Graceland and tried to foreclose on Graceland. This was 6 months to a year ago. This is happening all of the time, and people are completely exposed and they have no idea.
And so let's just run through a hypothetical scenario. So say John Doe, he buys a house. He's got $200,000. He puts as a down payment on, say, let's say $1 million mortgage. He puts 20% down, so his mortgage is $800,000 on this property. And he does it through, say, Bank of America. His monthly payment, these days with interest rates, say his monthly payment is $9,000. And right. So what you could do is, in essence, I'll simplify it. You can go, you create a fake, you have a fake identity. There's a million ways to get those. You have a fake identity. You go into the county clerk, or you do it online. You transfer the title over to your name. You kind of fraudulently represents kind of file as Bank of America, submitting paper to the title office saying this mortgage has now been satisfied. So now if you then go to, let's just say, Chase Bank and say, hey, I want to, I own this house in full. They look it up, they check it. Okay, hey, there's no liens against it. There's no mortgage out. That you own this house in full. It's $1 million property. And you say, look, I want to buy a vacation home, so I want to take out a mortgage on the home for $500,000. Which then, and you've got your new identity has the right credit. You have good credit. You have bank accounts. You then get Chase to lend you $500,000 against the equity of that home. You take that money, you deposit into your account, which is a fake ID, so not even trace back to you. You pull the cash out, you're out of there. So then John Doe has no idea this is happening. What happens to him?
He doesn't get noted. First of all, that was a great explanation, by the way. like you got that like that. Usually people are like, no, like they want to put up I don't understand. But that was actually great. So what happens is John Doe, who is the real owner of the house, even though I've transferred the deed, what happens to John Doe is he gets notified one day. He starts getting letters in the mail from the new lender saying they're foreclosing. Maybe he ignores them because they're in somebody else's name. Maybe he does say, you know what, this is weird because this is my address, but I own the house. This isn't me. Maybe he calls them and says, yeah, it's weird. You sent me this thing, and he has a conversation. And they say, no, we put a lien on that house for this other person's, this fake identity, and we're foreclosing. Even if he says, no, that's not true, they'll continue to foreclose. Who's John Doe? You're the old owner. All of our paperwork says this person legitimately own the house that we gave a mortgage to and we're foreclosing. John Doe has to now go file a police report, assuming that the local police department will actually accept a police report, because sometimes they say, I don't know, this sounds like maybe it's civil. And you're like, civil? They're like, yeah, it's paperwork. It sounds like this bank made a mistake. You need to get a lawyer, a civil lawyer. But let's say they do actually file the paperwork and and they investigate it and they see that there's some kind of a fraud. Well, in the meantime, the bank's still trying to foreclose. Chase is still trying to foreclose. And you have to then go out and hire an attorney to fight the foreclosure because the police department's not going to do it. That's not their job.
And so all Chase knows is we gave you $500,000. You haven't made payments in 6 months. We want our money back. So we're going to foreclose on the house, force its sale, and get our money back.
Correct.
Right?
Right. And that's one version. The other version of the scam is that the same type of situation, but instead I place the house for sale. So let's say the house is vacant. A lot of the scammers now are selling the house, which is a much quicker, easier transaction because they can just list the house for like a for sale by owner under market value. Keep in mind, they've satisfied any loans you have. If you had loans at all, maybe you own the property free and clear. It could be vacant land. It could be a rental property. It could just be an abandoned property that you own. This happens a lot in places like New York and Chicago, where somebody owns like a building they've had and it's vacant, and someone's in their 60s or 70s, and it's paid for. So they then list it for sale. You're not watching the property. Maybe even they break into it and show the property, or maybe you've got an Airbnb. Somebody just goes ahead and they end up satisfying the loan on the house, transferring the title, it's an Airbnb. They rented it to you. So that means that I can be there and I can show people the house that I'm selling.
Wow.
It's not my house, but I'm showing it to them. They then turn around, it's under market value, and then they buy the property because the property, like you said, it's $1 million property that you think you have got an $800,000 mortgage on. You actually don't have a mortgage on it at all. And now I'm offering that property for $700,000. Some investor will come in right away and say, what a deal. I'm going to buy this for $700,000. I'm going to sell it for $900 and make a quick $200,000. You have no idea. You think it's an Airbnb you're renting, or it's just a rental, or it's abandoned. You don't even know it until 6 months later when you drive by and you see that there's improvements on the property and two cars in the parking or in the driveway, and you stop and go, whoa, whoa, whoa. And you hop out and go, hey, what's going on? What's going on here? And they, what are you talking about? I've been here 6 months. I own this house.
Insane.
You see different versions of
it all makes sense. Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, it makes perfect sense. And so what does home title lock do? Where do they come into that? So
I get this question all the time. How can you protect yourself? Right. And here's the problem is that there's the protection is notification. So there's nothing you can go place on your title.
You can't lock your deed or lock your title. Okay.
Right. Just like you can lock your credit, right? So nobody can pull your credit. You can kind of put a lock on it. So that's not really possible with public records. You can't hide your title. You can't lock your title. What they do is home title lock will monitor your title 24 hours a day. And the moment there's any change with the title, you get an email from them that says, hey, did you just file a new mortgage on your property? Did you just get you have a lien that just showed up on your property, or your title was just transferred? Did you just sell your property? So you get notified right away. And that's great, right? That people are like, oh, that's great. Well, it is. But now what do? If you're somebody who doesn't really, you're not a lawyer, you're not a real estate attorney. So some people are like, oh, okay, that's good. The extra step, and this is what I like about home title lock, is that if something happens or has happened to your title, they'll get an attorney to represent you, and they'll spend up to $1 million to correct whatever fraud has occurred on your title. And that's what I think is a huge difference between them and any other company that's selling a monitoring service, is that they're actually an advocate on your side with with law enforcement and an attorney to correct the problem. Because being notified, okay, great. I don't know what to do. I'm not an attorney. You can't,
I
you
see.
know, you can't maneuver your way through the legal system if you are an insurance salesman. That's what you know. You don't know the legal system. And the second thing is, let's say, or the third thing, let's say, if you don't, what bothers me, if you don't have that, do you have $50,000 to go hire an attorney to do it? No, they pay for that. That's what I think is so great about them. They're an advocate for you that will pay until it's corrected.
I see. Okay, it makes it, because even if you know about it, if you don't know what to do, it just kind of keep going, right? Maybe you can stop it, potentially, but I'm assuming that these things are so confusing to me. I mean, even registering my car in a new state is confusing to me. And I hate the process, let alone dealing with all this stuff. So, okay. Well, so we've got, so the website is just hometitlelock.com. As you can see, they have that $1 million triple lock protection, which they say. So you got 24/7 monitoring of the home's title, the urgent alerts. And it's, as you mentioned, if title fraud should occur, our US-based restoration team will spend up to $1 million to fix the fraud and restore your title. So we have a promo code Seth, SETH, which will get people a free title report. So that way people can see from the get-go if there's been any kind of funny stuff happening with the title report. And then it's if you want to sign up for it, it's just a monthly fee, and you have all that security and you have that insurance. So it's a pretty straightforward process, right?
Right. Yeah, it's very easy. And it's all US based. You're talking to a regular US citizen.
Not some Cambodian call center.
No.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, it's a very easy system. They're very hands-on. They really do help and walk you through the whole thing.
Oh, perfect. So I'll make sure that I put the information in the show description and the promo code and all that stuff. And Matt, thanks for helping on here. And I'd love to do a longer show with you at some point, because I'd love to hear more about, like, we've watched The Wolf of Wall Street and these kinds of shows and see how that stuff works. But it's always interesting meeting someone who's kind of walked through that, but has turned things around and is doing something to help people instead of just, kind of feeding off the system in different ways. So thank you for doing what you're doing.
Yeah. Let me know. I'd be happy to do it.
Thank you, Matt,
for having me on.
You've probably heard me talk about the importance of being prepared, and that includes having access to life-saving medicine when you need it. That's why I want to tell you about ReliableMedicines.com. They offer affordable, prescription-based meds like ivermectin, fenbendazole, hydroxychloroquine, essential antibiotics, and more, all shipped directly to your door quickly and discreetly. There's no runaround, no waiting in line, no begging your doctor. Shipping is fast, usually 7 to 15 days, and their support team is available 24/7 if you need anything. I've used them myself, and I can tell you, this is the kind of resource every family should have on hand. And just for my listeners and viewers, you can use the promo code MIA15 at checkout to get 15% off your order. So head over to ReliableMedicines.com or just click the link in the description and stock up on life-saving medications while you still can. Again, that's ReliableMedicines.com using the promo code MIA15.